everybody. It's time to talk pools. It's the Pool Fanatic Show featuring Tony Caruso, the Pool Fanatic, Orlando Luxury Pools, TC Water Features, and, of course, the Pool Fanatic Pool Service Company. If you don't have a company that builds pools, that knows pools, you got some guy in an old pickup truck rusted out the back because half of his chemicals are leaking all over your streets. That's not what you want. You want somebody that's in the business, that knows the business, and that is Tony Caruso. How you doing?
Outstanding, Rob. Wonderful day. And who is watching the children today, Rob?
I certainly hope that more parents are than what I witnessed this week.
Well, I got a good news today. We had a birthday party at the house for my niece. She turned 5 today. There was right about 18 or 19 kids at the house, and we had equal amount of parents there as well. And, of course, you know what happens in my backyard. We have water pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
But here's what I liked about it today. Every parent watched every child. Now, the fountain I have out in the back door, that could actually be a little mini pool. It really entices little kids to be out there to put their feet in it. And so they're out there. I won't let them play in it because, one, it's a little chilly. Not terribly chilly, but a little chilly. And two, the adults were standing right there. So I love the fact that when you come to my house or our house, you have you have protection. We have the safety fence going around the pool with the perimeter fence, but unfortunately, my fountain does not have to be fenced, nor will I ever fence it. So we have to pay attention to who is actually watching the kids. But it was a good week last week, Rob. I got nothing off the wire. I can't find anything across the country where someone was negligent about not watching their children. We talk about who's watching the kids, not only out around the swimming pool, but in the bathtubs. Make sure the lids on the commodes are closed, or the washer doors closed. Make sure the 5-gallon buckets are open. There's no 5-gallon buckets laying around or any tires with water in them. We talk about not having the fact that we have 2 or 3 inches of water, which anybody can technically drown in 2 or 3 inches of water. If you're face down, you can't move. So that being said, good week. Let's keep it up. Let's know where our precious ones, Rob. We talk about this again. We got a special guest over here, and I can ask Ralph the same thing. If you guys both put your wallet on the desk, and I walked out with them today and didn't come back, you guys can replace your wallets, but you cannot replace your child.
Very much so.
Okay, so let's know. We got to pick out the important things and the things that aren't important to us, and then the ones that we can't replace, those precious loved ones, let's not lose our sight on where our children are. So before we get to Ralph today, I got some really good news. The Central Florida chapter had a golf tournament. In October, we raised $3,000 in that golf tournament, and that money, 100% of that money is going to go to charity. So in our board meeting last week, we voted to match those funds, which put us at $6,000. Our executive director, Sonia, says, you know what, why don't we just do one better yet? The Central Florida chapter has a few dollars in there. Well, let's get us to $10,000. And let's put all this money to swim lessons. I kind of brought this up a while back that we're going to put this to swim lessons. So Rowdy Gaines came in to our meeting before the board meeting, and he's promoting the Central Florida area for YMCA's. I think there was 52 YMCA's or 51 YMCA's in our area. So let me tell you the great news about what this $10,000 will do.
This is big.
This is huge. A swimming lesson at a YMCA starting, I think, next month or in March for $7 will get 5 lessons. It does not mean your child will be an Olympic swimmer. But what it will do is get them acclimated to water, to learn some do's and don'ts, learn how to float, roll over, because we were born to swim. We swam for 9 months before we took our very first breath of air in this world. So I'm proud to say the Central Florida chapter of the Florida Swimming Pool Association, that's a lot, I got it all out, is going to donate $10,000 to the YMCA. And we're going to get a little over 1,400 swimming lessons.
That's so huge.
And we're not done with this, Rob. We may have a really, really special guest in the show in a couple of weeks. But today we have a really, really special guest, a very, very, and I mean a very, very dear friend of mine from Hayward Pool Products, Mr. Ralph White. How are you doing today, Ralph?
Wonderful, and happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. It took me a long time to drag you over here on this radio station, and
but I've called in.
You've called in before.
Sir.
You haven't disguised your voice, though. That's a good thing because that's one thing I can pick up is someone's voice, even if you try to muffle your voice a little bit, it's still Tony's voice at the end of the day. So we're so proud to have you here, Ralph. And you know why you're here, because today's show is sponsored by Hayward Pool Products. And Hayward Pool Products and TC Water Features have been pretty much associated for well over 30 years. And you and I have been friends for well over 35 years.
Yes,
and
we have.
I think if we go back, maybe we don't want to date that, but it might be more like 37 or 38 years.
That's pretty close.
You think that's pretty close?
Yeah.
Okay, we both didn't have gray hair back then. So tell us tell us what you do for Hayward, Ralph. What do you do for Hayward?
I'm the district sales manager in Central Florida, and of course, we cover the Tri-County area and into Lake County.
Okay, so what does that mean for you? What do you actually, since you're the district sales manager, what does that entail for you?
Well, we support our distributor partners, so we're constantly working with the distributor salespeople, and my responsibilities include not only calling on pool builders and service companies and retailers, but we use kind of what we call a pull-through sales technique. In other words, I go out and we promote to the consumer, but we're also selling to the retailer and the builder and then to distribution, who is ultimately our customer.
Now, I cannot buy directly from Hayward Pool Products. Is that correct?
We only sell through authorized distributors.
Okay, so that puts everybody in the same playing field. So
Yep.
even though I have such an amazing relationship with Hayward, the only thing that I get to do that most pool builders can't do and no consumer gets to do is to work with your R&D department, sitting down with your engineers. And I think I have a stack of probably about 20 of the engineers at Hayward Pool Products. When we talk about development, you guys are always space ages ahead of the competitors, and there's reasons why. Is because one of the things that happens in this industry, if you don't stay ahead of the curve, you're going to be in third place really quick. And there's really only 3 players here in town, or actually in the state of Florida, or really in the country, that sell pool equipment.
3 major players. Yes.
Yeah. And another reason I stick with Hayward, one is I have direct access to you. So Ralph, when Ralph calls on coming to the office, it's not really much coming. It's coming so we can catch up, we can have conversations. We talk about things that I see in the industry where we might want to look and change things. But one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about today, is salt systems, chlorine generators, Aquarites and Aquarite Pros, and pretty much is the typical.
Chlorine generators.
Chlorine generators. So kind of like what I like to explain to people is, well, I don't want a chlorine pool. I want a salt pool. Well, Ralph, do you mind telling us what the difference between a chlorine pool and a salt pool is?
The deviation is between a chlorine generator and a salt generator. They don't generate salt. We add salt to the pool. And we call it, some people will say it's a saltwater pool. Well, you think of saltwater as being like the ocean. The ocean is between 30 and 40,000 parts per million of salt. In the swimming pool, it's actually just kind of like a saline solution.
Yeah.
About 3,000 parts per million is where we want to be, that 28 to 34 parts per million range. Can't really even taste it. Some people can, but the taste varies.
Yeah.
But it's more of a saline solution.
So we talk about the salt level in the Atlantic Ocean off the East Coast is right at about 35,000 parts per million. Mm-hmm. So we know when we get a gulp of that salt water out of the ocean, we know we got some of salt water. So when we talk about chlorine pools versus saltwater pools, it's still chlorine at the end of the day.
It's still chlorine.
All right. So here's the difference. Here's what I like to explain. Hayward doesn't make chlorine tablets. They make salt systems.
That's correct.
And you don't make the salt, but we buy the components to make the system work. And I remember back in the day when I first got into salt, probably was in about 84 or 85, we used to have these little test tubes that we would put a little bit of water in, we put a little bit of salt in, and we hook a little electricity up to it, and guess what we made?
We made chlorine.
We made chlorine right there in someone's house.
You could see it.
Yeah, and you could smell it too, by the way. And it's only because it's in a hard state right there. It's not in a diluted state. So we could go in and demonstrate to a consumer how I can make chlorine right off the bat. But people don't realize that salt is a metallic. Salt is a mineral. So how do we make it, Ralph? Can you kind of explain how we make chlorine? Go ahead.
How we make chlorine?
How do we make chlorine with what's the process of making chlorine through a salt system?
Well, we're actually breaking down the Na2Cl molecule into sodium chloride, which is what salt is.
Right.
And we're making hydrochloric acid, HOCl, which is the disinfectant, which is chlorine.
Okay. So I've asked a customer the other day, and I said, have you ever had algae in your chlorine tab-fed pool? And the answer is, well, sure, everybody does.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going, really? Well, let me tell you something. You should never have algae in a chlorine-fed pool of any type. That basically boils down to either you're not doing your job as a consumer or your pool service guy's not doing his job as the pool service provider.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I do, Ralph. When I sell these systems, I fully understand what they do and how they work. And I can tell you right here today, and Ralph's going to sit and say the same thing, if you take care of your system, we're going to talk about how do you maintain that system today. If you take care of that system, should you ever have algae in your pool?
You shouldn't.
I wonder why. And I know why. The answer is it's making 100% liquid chlorine. Disinfection is done inside the piping, and as it returns out in the pool, it returns to salt again. Is that pretty much? Is that a pretty easy way of saying that?
That's good. Yes.
Okay, that's without getting too technical.
Wow.
So the sanitation is done exactly where it needs to happen internally, and then as that sanitized water comes into the pool, it does its disinfectant. So, Ralph, one of the this kind of story we told off the air. I picked up a pool service account this week, and one of the things that I found is the pool looked pretty good. But when we got into the system, the water was just absolutely horrible. And one of the things that we found, and we're going to talk about this after the break in a minute, I had a cell that I couldn't blow through.
Oh, man.
Calcification.
Yep. And why did I get calcium in that cell, Ralph? Why would I get calcium in a cell?
Even though the cell is designed to reverse polarity, which helps to keep the calcium from all, you get a buildup of that calcium as the process makes chlorine.
But if you maintain your water chemistry where it belongs, should that calcium exist?
No.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how do we clean that cell. We're also going to talk about the benefits of sense and dispense if you have a saltwater system. So anyhow, as we're going on through the system, we pull the cell out, and boy, oh boy, you cannot see through a T-cell 15, which has 7 blades, and they have positive, negative charges on them, and you can't see through it. Well, what is also rusted on the inside, we're going, rust, these things don't rust. There's no exposed mineral in the cell to make it rust.
The plates are actually titanium.
Think about that. Is it called?
It's called ruthenium.
Ruthenium. See,
which is a metal alloy.
Okay, wow. Which is not very cheap.
Which is
very complicated.
Which is plated onto the
titanium plates.
Titanium plates.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we found out where the rust came from. We opened the basket. It was full of metal screws.
Ouch.
You should have seen what the filter looked like when we took it apart. 407-282-4911. Please visit us at Orlando Luxury Pools. Like us on Facebook. That's TC Water Features, where amazing things can happen in your backyard.
And amazing things happen in the newsroom with 3 big things you need to know. Hey, welcome back. It's the Pool Fanatic Show. Tony Caruso. That's the man you want to talk to, the Pool Fanatic, Orlando Luxury Pools, TC Water Features. And we have open lines. I've got 9 open express lines right now at 844-220-0965. That's the only express lanes you're going to find today with everybody out there buying those stupid lottery tickets. 844-220-0965. Try to go anywhere today and buy anything. You just can't.
Well,
it's amazing.
Somebody said if you won the big kahuna tonight, you could buy 75 million Starbucks coffees.
Well, there you have it.
Well, that's only 75 million coffees, man. Come on, give me a break. That's
I
it.
just want to have a pool with Hayward Pool products in it and lighting that's unbelievable. That's what I want.
Well, let's just resolve the salt systems, and we'll talk about all the other cool stuff here. So, Ralph, one of the biggest things people ask me to do is, how do I clean my cell?
It's very important.
What's the proper way? Okay. When I get on an Aquarite, I get that little yellow light that shows up. That tells me I need to do something. It says inspect cell. What does that mean?
Now, what does a cell do for the first place? We got listeners out there that may not know what a cell does.
The cell produces chlorine from salt.
Oh, okay. There we go.
correct.
Okay. Notice that. Okay.
So when you get the little, I call it idiot light, but you also have digital to go along with it. What does that inspect cell light mean?
It's a check system light, and what it means that it's time to inspect the cell and to clean the cell. It automatically, it's actually a countdown timer that is for 500 hours. After 500 hours of operation, the little light will come on to remind you that it's time to clean the cell.
Which if you did every 8 hours a day for 60 days, about every two and a quarter months, if you're running 8 hours a day, that 500 hours will come up. So just don't walk over there and hit the diagnostic button for 5 seconds to make the code go away. Actually inspect the cell. So how do we do that, Ralph?
You break the cell apart. It's you can use a 5-gallon bucket, or ideally we make a cell cleaning stand. And then you can take your Hayward DE scoop and fill it with 2/3 of the way with water, and then fill it up with muriatic acid.
Right.
That scoop is the exact amount that you need to pour into the cell stand, and watch it fizz. And
then,
as soon as it stops fizzing.
So what color is the fizz, Ralph? What color?
It's white.
Okay, so why is it white? What's it doing? It's eating off the residual calcium from lack of water chemistry for the most part. Okay, so once the fizzing stops, you can actually take you can put that residual back into the DE scooper, because we don't want you to put that in the yard, and I don't want you to put it in the street either.
No.
We'll tell you what to do in a second. So what I do, once I clean my cell, I actually rinse it off. And here's why I rinse it off: because it's going to have a residual of muriatic acid on there, and your hands it'll actually dry your hands out pretty good. So now that my cell's cleaned, do I have to put it in a certain way? Is there a front or backwards?
You can put it in either way.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, if you have a 2-speed or variable speed pump and the cell is installed horizontally, you want to make sure that the cell is rotated down so that the plates are covered with water.
And the reason that is because not enough flow goes across the cell.
Low speed, your pipes are not full of water, and we want to make sure those cells are submerged.
Right, and the reason is so now we got full contact time on those. So now if someone was going to go out to their control panel and they open the door on an Aquarite, for instance, and they're looking at the display, there's a little square window in the middle that has a bunch of numbers on there, and to the left you have a little black button that says Diagnostics. What does that button do, Ralph?
It changes the screen so that you can see what when you first open the door, it's going to indicate what your average salt level is.
Correct.
Which we'd like for it to be between 28 and 3,400 parts per million.
Okay.
As you push the button, it will take you to the temperature of the water, which is one of the things that the Aquarite uses to calculate what your salt level is.
Based on water temperature.
Based on water temperature.
Very important, is it not?
It is. It really is. The amount of chlorine, the amount of voltage and amperage, which as you push that diagnostic button, it'll tell you what your voltage is, what your amperage is, even what the software revision is of that particular board.
And there's a way, and another number we're gonna get salt, temperature, percentage, volts. So what's important about volts that a consumer needs to know? If you have an Aquarite with a T-cell 15, the high number should be somewhere between, your volt should be between 24 as a ballpark and 28 volts.
That's correct.
And on your next time you hit down, your amp should be around 4.5 to about 8. So that's a good number. Then I believe the next one down is your minus number, which is minus. So if I first pull up my screen and it says 3,000, I'm scrolling down temperature, percentage, volts, amps, and my negative number. If my negative number is within 200 to 300 parts of my non-negative number, then my system's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, because it reverses polarity every 4 hours. We don't move the pin over. To put it on 2 hours. We always do on 4 hour turnover cycles. We're going to go to a break. We're going to continue this conversation because we have still a lot to talk about. 407-282-4911. Visit us at OrlandoLuxuryPools.com. Like us on Facebook. That's TC Water Features, where amazing things can happen in your backyard.
Now, in the 30 seconds we've got before the break, and that would be news, weather, and sports, everybody. Tony, is this something that the pool service guy is supposed to be doing?
You want to know how many pool service guys turn these off? because they don't understand.
Because they don't know how to do it.
They don't understand it. So
There
we're going
you
to talk
go.
about that too, Rob, how a consumer gets robbed by not letting the system do what it's supposed to do.
See what's happening to you people? That's why you're listening to the show, The Pool Fanatic. Call us at 844-220-0965, 844-220-0965. We'll be back. Hey, it's the Pool Fanatic Show. Tony Caruso, and we have a special guest from Hayward Pool Products today. You can text us at 21232, 21232. If what you're listening to you as a consumer sounds very, very technical, here's the deal. These are things that your pool person should be doing for you that he or she is not doing for you. So you wonder why when you get ready for the big, big party and your pool all of a sudden turns cloudy or green, or you've got all these places on your pool that aren't the right color? Well, that's because your pool guy isn't doing the work he's supposed to do, because he doesn't understand what Tony's talking about. This is no easy thing. So we have Hayward here, the manufacturer of all this equipment and the best equipment you can have. And, of course, Tony is the practitioner of that and also an expert in that and an industry leader, I would say a Hall of Famer. And you've just got to know these things, and you should be asking they should be asking their pool guy. They should ask him tomorrow.
Most of them don't know.
You know, Tony was talking about this, and this, and of course the pool guy's going to go, no, just put a floater in your pool. It looks cute. It's a pelican.
I went to one the other day. There was 11 floaters in the pool, and I said, which one has chlorine? He goes, I'm not sure which one has chlorine. I said, well, you keep me employed. Those floaters keep me employed. So back to the question, Ralph. If a customer was going to go through the diagnostics and go through and say, okay, all this looks good, but I'm not really sure it's working like it should, is there a way the consumer can have their cell tested?
Absolutely. Most retailers do have cell testers.
Okay.
If not, you can call our tech service department and just simply give them your zip code, and they can give you the cell tester locations within a 25-mile radius.
Okay, so your tech service call line is not just for salt systems; it's for everything Hayward. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ralph's going to give you a phone number just once this first time, but before we close show, we're going to give it to you again, because you got to pick the phone up and call these people, because they are not going to put you on eternal hold. They're going to ask you a couple questions on the prompt. You're going to hit the right buttons, and it's going to put you in the hands. What is that number, Ralph?
The number's 908-355-7995.
And that is an amazing number. So now I've got my cell tested and it looks good. How long should my cell last in a swimming pool? If I bought one that wasn't on the internet, I bought one from a real pool guy, from a distributor, I get a 3-year warranty on that cell. And if I maintain that cell correctly, what should I get? If I do everything across the board the way it should be, how many years should I get out of that cell?
You're correct in that if you maintain the cell properly,
okay,
because the life of the cell, it goes right back to that water chemistry and maintenance.
Right. So it's hard to tell, though, isn't it?
It's very hard to tell, because we've got cells that have been in operation for 7 to 9 years.
Yeah, I've got one going right now in the service. It's 10 years. Okay, so a customer is going through their diagnosis. They say, okay, the salt's not between 27 and 34. It's down around 22, and I have to add salt to my pool. Where do they put the salt at?
Always add salt to the shallow end of the pool, and you want to take your pool brush and just brush it towards the main drain, and it'll dissolve before it gets there.
So here's what I like to do. I like to pour the salt on my feet while I'm standing in the pool, because salt's a conditioner, and then I can kind of just whoosh it in with my foot and then maybe a little residual broom off. But I think what some people fail to remember is when you have to add salt to your pool, what's the other item we have to add with that?
You always add cyanuric acid, or what the layman calls stabilizer.
Or we call it conditioner. We call it sunblock. That's what actually holds the chlorine in the pool. Where does that go, Ralph?
You can add that to the skimmer.
Okay. Now, the reason we don't want to add salt to the deep end of the pool is because...
Well, you were talking about the voltage and the amperage.
Yeah.
And the higher the salt content, which is a mineral, is going to spike your amperage.
Right.
And if you add salt to the deep end of the pool and your aqua ride is running, then you could potentially damage the board.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if you damage your board, I will know after I remove 2 screws from your control panel, I will know exactly where the salt level or the salt was installed in your pool. And why is that, Ralph? How am I going to know that, Ralph? If I open that panel up, what am I going to see?
Well, you'll see a blown fuse or a failed capacitor.
Okay, we call it the wafer board.
Yes.
It's black.
Yes.
I know it immediately. So you can't fool myself or my service people when we come to look and inspect at these panels because your system's down. Now, I use T-cell 15s, and a T-cell 15 will treat up to 40,000 gallons of water. And this kind of goes back to my question, how long should a cell last? Well, if you have a 10,000-gallon pool, you make a cell that'll treat 15,000. You make a cell that'll treat 25,000, and you make a cell that'll treat 40,000. I put 40,000-gallon cells on a 12,000-gallon pool. Do you know why I do that, Ralph?
Because it just extends the life of the cell.
Because I have workers hard, does it?
Does not have to work as
I don't have to put my foot on the floor and run that motor at 3,450 RPMs all day long. That's why we have this amazing Hayward Energy Star variable speed pool pumps. So when we make chlorine, sodium hypochlorite, it's 100% pure chlorine. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What's the pH value? You know the pH value of that chlorine?
13.
Okay. So what's going to happen when I'm making high pH chlorine? I'm going to mess with the pH.
You're going to constantly get what we call a pH drift.
Okay.
And that's going to raise your pH. And so at least on a weekly basis, you should test the pH and correct the pH and also check the alkalinity.
Okay. So how often do you think consumers, if they're doing their own swimming pools, are going to test the pH weekly? They might miss a week. They might miss 2 weeks. And they might get a week. And then but you got to put higher concentrations in the pool. And I do not recommend you to walk over to the shallow end of the pool and put muriatic acid in the shallow end of the pool because acid is heavier than water. It takes approximately 4 feet for the acid to dissolve out before it hits the floor. Pour acid in your pool and look and see how heavy it is. There's a reason we don't do that in the shallow end because it'll basically acid wash the shallow end of your pool. So here's where we do not shy our consumer. Well, you know what? I got to go out and adjust the pH in my pool this week. Well, we put in Aquarite Pros. What an Aquarite Pro is versus an Aquarite, it's a little bit more sophisticated system, has a little bit more digital technology in it. And we put a product called Sense and Dispense in there. What Sense and Dispense does is it senses the pH in the pool and it dispenses the proper amount of muriatic acid into the pool. Well, I always say it does it in teaspoon increments, but it's a lot less than that at a time. Is that right, Ralph?
Yeah, it's constantly monitoring exactly what your pH and ORP is.
Right.
A lot of people may not know what ORP is because it's not parts per million. It's actually the oxidation reduction potential or the effectiveness of what the chlorine is in the pool.
And we register that in millivolts. So we'll get to that. We'll get to millivolts in a second. So now I'm making high pH chlorine, and my pH is drifting. Okay, we don't want it to drift no more. So how do we fix it? We put a Sense and Dispense in, and we only install Hayward's 15-gallon feeder tank. We don't do the 7.5-gallon off-brand. We do the 15-gallon feeder tank. So on a 15,000-gallon pool, as an average, I can get almost 90 days out of pH injection into my pool through my Sense and Dispense. Now, there's something that I have to do, whether I have an Aquarite or an Aquarite Pro or Sense and Dispense. But I'm going to tell you right now from personal experience, I have an Aquarite, I have a control panel, I have OmniLogic. So it's basically could be Aquarite Pro on steroids because it got a whole lot more stuff, but it's still monitoring and measuring pH and chlorine.
That's correct.
So what I've got to do every 90 days on the high side is, one, inspect my cell, which I should be doing every 500 hours, but I don't have to, and I'll tell you why. Because I maintain perfect pH balance in my pool moment by moment my pump is running. Why? I have 2 metering devices next to that control panel. One is metering and measuring pH. One is metering and measuring ORP, or my chlorine, my effectiveness of my chlorine. So the simple. How do I clean those, Ralph? How simple is it to clean probes?
Do you have some toothpaste?
Do you have a toothbrush? What are we doing, Ralph?
It's very easy. Of course, you shut the system down, and always you want to turn your pump off at the breaker. So just to make sure that it's not going to come on, because what we're going to do is we're going to open the vessel by unthreading those sensors and cleaning the tips with a little toothpaste and a little an old toothbrush.
An old toothbrush, and
cool.
don't put it in your mouth to rinse it out. Just take a little extra water and rinse them out. Screw the probes in. There's what's unique about the two probes. One at the end of the pigtail says pH. The other pigtail says ORP. And there's two little slots that specifically say pH. It's a little turn and twist. You're back online. You turn your pump back on. Do not read salt and or pH for at least 2 or 3 minutes so it can kind of flush through the monitoring system. And that is how easy it is to clean your system. So if you're looking for ease of application, ORP through either Aquarite or it's got to be Aquarite Pro or ProLogic or Aqualogic or OmniLogic. And if you do that, you are now going to have a very, very healthy, happy swimming pool. I'm not going to be corrosive. I'm not going to be growing scaling. I'm not growing little white things on my walls anymore, and I'm not going to have a dirty cell. And when I'm talking about for personal experience, I have never cleaned my cell one time since I've had ORP and pH sense and dispense. Wow. Not one time. My cells look just like the barrel of a gun, spick and span, perfectly clean. There's nothing in them. And the reason is because I can monitor pH. There's two things control chemistry in your pool, Rob. Do you remember what the first one was?
One of them is Mother Nature.
The second one is pH.
pH.
Okay. You can't control Mother Nature because we don't have indoor swimming pools, but we sure can control pH. So anybody know what the pH in your eyes is?
7.5.
Guess what? If I maintained a pH of 7.5 in my pool, guess what I would no longer have, Rob? Eye irritation.
Eye irritation. That's
there
right.
You go.
She almost flunked out of the Tony Caruso College of Pool Knowledge.
Okay. So what's the key about maintaining good pH? Well, it keeps the pool finish in good shape. You're not growing stuff on the wall. Your finishes aren't getting rough. And also your skin loves it.
Ooh, nice.
Your hair loves it. So by making pure chlorine returning to salt again is the only way to do it. A chlorine tablet is what, $2?
About like that.
You dissolve it, you put more in. 407-282-4911. Visit us at Orlando Luxury Pools. Like us on Facebook. That's TC Water Features. We're amazing things, and I promise you, amazing things can happen in your backyard.
Paul over in Grand Island. We will be with you in just a minute right after 3 big things you need to know right here on News 96.5 WDBO. We've got 6 minutes to go before news, traffic, and weather. That'll be followed by Know Your Diabetes. That's coming up after that. Right now, let's get to the phones. Grand Island is a beautiful area out by Eustis. Paul, what's going on?
Well, I have a chlorine pool, and it was built in 2002. And I keep on getting all these kinds of stains on the bottom of it. And I was thinking of maybe going with salt water, maybe to eliminate that problem that I've been having for the last 2 years.
Paul, are you on a well by any chance?
No.
All right, so you're on city water. And do you take care of your own swimming pool?
No, I have a company that does it.
Remember, stains don't come in the bag. They're there through a lack of water chemistry. Now, the beautiful thing about a saltwater pool, it makes 100% pure chlorine and returns to salt. The chlorine tablets that you put in your pool are only 66% effective under perfect water conditions. So for every 3 tablets you put in your chlorinator, only 2 are effective and the other one's thrown away. So a chlorine tablet's about $2. You put 3 in, that's $6. Well, you threw 2 away because it doesn't do anything. Salt, once it's entered into your pool, it stays into your pool until it's diluted. And there's only one way salt is diluted in your pool, and that is through water. That is it. So if you're looking to have a healthier pool, it's definitely have a salt system. I highly recommend it because, one, salt has 14,000 known usages, and chlorine could be a carcinogenic according to what they say. So and Aquarite's the only way to go, Paul. I'd always put an Aquarite Pro because if you wanted to add a sense and dispense down the road, I could do that. So,
okay.
Have you
What's
done any?
Like that cost?
It depends on the size of pool. How many gallons?
12 by 24.
Give me a ballpark, probably about 8,000 or 9,000 gallons. About 8,000 or 9,000 gallons of 12 by 24 is probably 5 feet deep max. You're under again. It's a difference between if you want to do Aquarite and Aquarite Pro. The difference between an Aquarite and Aquarite Pro, dollars and cents out the door, is about $60. That's why I always put AquaRite Pros in. So if you did an AquaRite Pro, you'd probably be in the $1,400 range. That is complete water diagnostic chemistry. We add the proper amount of salt. We go through your alkalinity, make sure your alkalinity is correct. We also, at that point, make sure your pH is correct. We get all those incorrect parameters and then educate you how to use the system. The install, 2 hours.
Wow.
2 hours.
Sounds good. Now I can take care of that myself, right?
Yes, sir. And then you'll just follow the small little guideline rules about how to maintain that thing every roughly 500 hours, and you're in great shape. But, Paul, I'll tell you what, your best friend, you're done with algicide, you're done with shocks, you're done with all that stuff. You're done with green pools, you're done with the fact that your pool service guy can't take care of your pool, but stains that you have in your pool, have us up. I'll take a look at them, and I'll show you how to get the stains out of your pool. I'll save you $5,000 minimum of $4,000 of resurfacing your pool by just removing the stains, because I am stain certified contractor as well. So great question, Paul. I appreciate you calling in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir.
And very quickly, well, we can't get to her yet because we're still processing her call. But again, with these Hayward products, it just seems like it's a walk in the park. It's adjusted from your phone, from your tablet. You got total responsibility over your pool.
You know why I use Hayward? It is the most consumer-friendly product on the market today. You don't have to be a computer whiz to work on this equipment. Mm-hmm. That's what baffles me.
Okay, we got Debbie on the line right now, and this is fairly easy, I think. Debbie, what's the problem real quick?
Hi, thank you. I have a Hayward assault pool, and I have the Hayward products. But almost every 4 years, I have to replace my panel because the salt reading ends up something going wrong with it that I have to replace the whole unit. Is that normal?
No, not even. Do you take care of your own pool, Debbie?
Debbie,
do you take care of your own swimming pool?
Yeah.
Okay. We need to come up and show you how to use your salt system. But Ralph, can you kind of give an idea of what she's looking to do, basically?
You want to make sure that when you add salt to the pool, that you are adding it to the shallow end of the pool, because a lot of times people will just dump the salt right into the deep end of the pool.
That's where I do it.
Okay.
That could cause damage to the board, which could be the issue you're having there.
Debbie, I have never ever changed an entire panel out. I've replaced a board before. And I've replaced the flow switch before. And
like the salt level?
Yes, ma'am.
Every time it doesn't read, and we're adding salt.
Okay.
And it's because that panel thing went out. So I had to call Hayward, and they said, "Oh no, you need a new board." I had to pay for 2 new panels, for the salt thing to read right.
So here's a question. Here's a question for you, Debbie. Are you cleaning your cell per the guidelines?
What do you mean?
Well, the cell has to be cleaned every roughly.
Yep, with muriatic acid and water.
Okay, and then put it back in, then reset it.
Yep.
And then if you don't keep the right amount of salt in your pool, it makes the cell work hard. If you don't keep stabilizer in your pool, you can't hold chlorine, so it makes the cell work hard. There's a lot of variables in there, but these systems are bulletproof.
And again, she said she was adding to the deep end of the pool, which is a problem. That's going to burn it up every time.
Yeah, you can never add salt to the deep end of your pool because it will eventually burn your cell board out. It'll actually burn. If it doesn't get the fuse, it's going to get the circuit board. And the reason to tell you to replace that, Debbie, is because what happens as that salt goes through the system, it actually creates heat in that panel, and that's what burns that board out. And then you don't, and that is a huge mistake. That could be a $300, $400, $500 mistake if you don't do it correctly. So keeping the water chemistry, adding salt to the shallow end, it makes your life a whole lot easier. I want to say thank you very much, Ralph White, for being here today. We didn't even scratch the surface. We got to do this again.
We'll need to do it again.
Yeah, see, I told you there's nothing to fear about this radio. We'd had a great conversation. Don't worry about that microphone in front of you. This has been an awesome week. 407-282-4911. Visit us on Orlando Luxury Pools. Like us on Facebook. That's TC Water Features, where amazing things can happen in your backyard.
Thank you, Tony. News is next.